Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. Today we are going to analyze one of my games. So let's start. I was white over here, so I started with d4 and f6, c4, g6. So at this point, it wasn't clear whether black is going to play king's Indian defense or Grunfeld defense. For example, if he plays bishop g7 over here, so it will be king's Indian defense, and if he plays something like d5, then it will be Grunfeld defense. Knight c3, bishop g7. Okay, so it was clear that he's going to play king's Indian defense. We continued with e4. So this is a classical variation of king's Indian defense where white castles on the shorter side or on the king side. d6, knight f3, castles, bishop e2, e5, castles, knight c6, d5, knight e7, b4. This b4 move or this attack by white on the queen side, this is called bayonet attack. So in this position, as you can see, white has a pawn chain which is going towards the queen side. So that is why white is supposed to attack on the queen side with these lines. On the other hand, black is having a pawn chain which is going towards the king side. So black is supposed to attack on the king side by playing moves like f5 and f4. So let's see how the game progresses. A5, bishop a3. Again, this is all bookish moves. So gaining a tempo over here by attacking the hanging rook. A4, knight c5, knight d2. So by knight d2, white is waiting for black to commit a mistake. You can say a positional mistake. So the mistake is here, if black plays f5, then white can just find a passing move, or you can say just a time pass move. So maybe he can play something like a5. The plan of passing the move over here is white is waiting for black to commit that positional mistake by playing f4. If he plays f4 over here, then white is going to play g4 and is going to exchange this bad bishop of his. As you can see, all this white center pawns are on white color. Then that is why this e2 ka bishop is a bad bishop. On the other hand, black center pawns are on dark squares. So this c8 bishop of black is a good bishop. So if white can exchange his bad bishop with opponent's good bishop, then we can say it's better for white and it's a positional loss for black. So let's see what happens. f5, okay, bishop into knight, d into c5. So here white is making that passing move, and white is waiting for black to commit a mistake, and he did. So of course we are going to play bishop g4, h5, bishop into c4, c8, queen into c8. Now in this whole king's Indian setup, black is supposed to attack on the queen side, king side, sorry, by playing by pushing these pawns ahead. Then this knight will join, and one fine day this c8 ka bishop is used to sacrifice on this h3 squares if white ever plays h3. So this bishop is very important for black for the attacking purpose. Right now, as the bishop is not over there, we can say there won't be any strength in black's attack. So let's see. Okay, knight f3. So we are trying to attack this backward pawn, and at the same time we are going to trying to play knight g5. So from knight g5 we can jump over to e6. e6 will be a very strong square for our knight, especially when this c8 bishop is not there. So that is why this c8 bishop is that important for black. So of course black played bishop f6, so he stopped that knight g5 idea. d6. Here I thought I was in time trouble in this position. So I was thinking whether to push the pawn or to just consolidate the position. So here I guess the better move was to play knight e1, because at knight g5 is no longer possible. So we'll be playing knight e1, and then the knight will be going to d3, and from d3 this knight will start pressurizing both the pawns. So this should have done over here, but I played this d6 move over here, and then rook d8. So the idea is now this pawn is pinned over here. White cannot capture, or he will lose the queen. There is one more way to save the pawn. It's a defensive way. So white can play knight b5 over here to defend the pawn, but still this pawn can't be defended, because after pawn into pawn, white cannot play knight into pawn, because again this knight is pinned, and then sorry, black will attack the knight by playing queen c6, and this knight will be lost on d6. So here white should have played something like knight d5, and after a black plays knight into pawn over here, sorry, rook into pawn, then knight into bishop check, rook into f6, and then he will get back his lost pawn on e5. So this should have played in the game, but here I missed all this variation altogether. So I played knight d5, and I lost this pawn. Even if white is pawn down in this position, this d6 pawn is very weak. It is a backward pawn, and because of this d6 pawn, this d5 square is very important for white. So this is an outpost. So if white can place his knight on this d5 square, then this knight will be very active and very attacking. So here I played queen b3. So I was thinking, let's keep the rook on this open file and then start pressurizing this d6 pawn. But then later on I realized that here black has a very nice plan. He can play knight c6, and then he can play knight d4. And once the knight reaches the d4 square, this whole d file will be closed for white. White should not capture this knight on the d4, or otherwise after capturing the knight, black will be having a strong passed pawn on this d4 square, and then white will have many difficulties in the endgame. So that is why this d4 knight won't be capturable. So knight c6, okay. So here black missed one move. He played rook b8. Instead, he should have captured this pawn over here. But maybe he was more concerned about this b7 pawn of his. So he thought about giving it extra protection. So that is why he played rook b8. So now I wanted to play knight c3, and then knight d5, and at the same time I have to keep an eye on this knight d4 move, because in that move my both the pieces are under attack, especially the queen. And as I already said, I cannot play knight into d4, so I have to keep this knight supported. Otherwise my king side pawn structure will be in bad shape. So that is why I played queen d1 over here, knight d4, knight c3 as planned, queen f6, and then comes knight d5. Now knight is on the best possible square on the board, and hopefully I am expecting him to do a lot of important things. Let's see. Bishop g7, rook d6. So here it is a multi-purpose move. White is trying to pressurize this backward pawn, and at the same time white is going to double the rooks on the b file, so that he can have access on the 7th rank. So the 7th rank will be very important, as you must have heard it ki rook on the 7th rank is very strong. Okay. So here black is trying to disturb white's kingside pawn structure by moves like knight into f3 check, compulsory queen into f3, queen into f3, and then g into f3. Now as you can see, white's kingside pawn structure is kind of weak. It's not strong. Even the king is kind of exposed. But right now, no black piece is in a position to attack the white's king. So right now, white doesn't have to worry about his king side weakness. He should focus on getting his rook on the 7th rank. So that is why here, after bishop f8, white played RAB1. So he's going to capture that pawn. Here there is no way for black to support this pawn one more time. For example, if he thinks about playing something like this, then white has a very strong move, that is knight f6 check, and this rook is captured for free. There is one more plan for white. He can simply push the pawn ahead, as black cannot capture the pawn because he will lose the rook on b8. So that is why here after RAB1, black played RA8. So black is giving up that b7 pawn, and in return he's getting that a5 pawn. But more importantly, white is getting his rook on the 7th rank. And why rook is so important on the 7th rank, you'll come to know about it very shortly. Let's continue ahead. Rook into b7, rook into a5, and now with the knight and the rook, white has created a mating net around black king. So the mating net goes like this: knight f6 check, forced move king h8, and then there follows rook h7 checkmate. Black could have stopped this checkmate by playing something like bishop g7, but then again it wouldn't be that strong move, because then white will be playing something like knight c7, and once this rook is moved away, so for example knight c7, rook into a5, and then he will be playing rook c6. As you can see, both these pieces are under attack. Rook is hanging and bishop is a not so well supported piece. So here white is getting, definitely getting a free piece, or at least he is getting an exchange. For example, after bishop f6 he can play knight into rook, bishop into knight, and now he can simply pin the bishop by playing rook b8. And this way white will be a clearly rook up, and he will start capturing all these loose pawns one by one. But black selected a line in which he got checkmated quickly. So let's move, take back few moves back. So after rook a8, bishop rook into b7. So that is why the moral of the story here is, in the end game you are supposed to, or you try to keep your rook on the 7th rank. If your one rook reaches the 7th rank, so you can say the half the battle is won. So after rook into a5, knight f6 check, rook king h8, and rook h7 checkmate. So I hope you enjoyed this game. So this was a King's Indian classical variation. So white got a comfortable position in the opening, but then he jumbled in the middle game by sacrificing, not exactly sacrificing, he totally blundered that d6 pawn. But luckily he got his rook on the 7th rank, and then that was enough for white to checkmate the black king. So I hope you enjoyed the game. So please do not forget to like the video, and also please subscribe my channel so that you can see a lot of such videos. See you soon. Have a nice day.